Good morning and welcome to the SEASCAPE Energy Asia PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and they can be submitted at any time by the Q&A tab situated in the right corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives in the meeting itself. However, the company can review the questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Executive Chairman James Menzies. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Good to be speaking to you. We're here in Kuala Lumpur, where we've been attending the Energy Asia conference, which has been great fun. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Maybe you can go to the first slide, Nick. I'm here with Nick and Pierre. I'm not going to, I don't think we need an introduction because if you've heard any of these before, you'll be very familiar with us. But yeah, we've been here at Energy Asia, and I think SEASCAPE, I'd say, caused the people took notice of us. I think following the 2A farm out, which was a very notable deal in this part of the world. So we certainly got a bit of profile from that, and people got familiar with our name and started to look at our story. But here at Energy Asia, we've seen it's a big Petronas hosted conference. It's got all the world's the majors are here, their CEOs are here. The NOCs are attending, all the big IOCs. And we surprised people, I think, at that conference because we were suddenly thrust into the limelight on Tuesday when Petronas announced that we were being awarded the Tamaris cluster. So we certainly got a lot of profile and a lot of attention. And in fact, ever since then, we have been fielding a lot of inbound from various companies asking, what do we want to do with that asset? Are there things we can work on together? How have you guys got to this place? So suddenly, our names suddenly went up in lights in the middle of this huge industry event, which has been a very very odd experience. Anyway, so we want to tell you about Tembakau, and we have Mr. Malaysia himself to my right, who is the best guy to do that. I'll save his blushes, but Pierre was familiar with this asset because he's worked with it with Lundin, who was the previous operator. So there isn't much that we don't know about it that other people do know. I think our knowledge is as good as the rest of the industry about this asset. But going back to when we were last speaking, at the time of our results, we were saying that it would have been a pivotal year. We had taken that big, brave decision to focus purely on Southeast Asia, pivot the business completely. And we had established that foothold, that was so important to get ourselves on the ground, get ourselves in the thick of it. We had an operatorship. We had what we believed to be an extremely exciting asset. And we'd started to build out that portfolio, and having done all our business development homework, and we do pride ourselves on following what's going on around the patch and who's doing what's available, what we like. We felt that it was the time to make a big step, particularly when it came to operatorship. And this is what Tamaris is all about. It is, in many ways, it's the biggest step. Not least because of the operatorship, but also the size of the resource base that we're dealing with, as you'll see, completely changes the complexion of the company. And I think the other important thing is what it says about us from the perspective of the regulator in the national company, Petronas. They are, I've said this before, the barriers to entry here are very high, and you will not be given these opportunities if they don't believe you. If they don't believe in you, you can't come near it. And this is why I've been saying we are competitively advantaged over here. It's something that very, very few smaller companies have, and to a certain extent, that's partly by we've been able to move as fast as we can and build this position up. There is competition for this stuff, don't get me wrong, but when you're nimble and determined, you can certainly do well with this sort of thing. So we do see this as a sort of confirmation of achieving those aims that we laid out. Next one, please. Yeah, so the portfolio now, it's not just a matter of colouring in the map here. I think all these assets are really high quality. The 2A thing we've talked about at length. It's very, very exciting. We'll give you updates on that as we go through the year. I'm sure Nick will talk a little bit about it a bit later. But fantastic. The Dewa cluster just looks better and better. And EnQuest cracking on with that. Again, another DRO, so a nil cost entry. And now Tamaris, which is our flagship operated position, 250 BCF. It's high value upside, as we say. It's not just the discovered gas in the ground, but as you'll see from Pierre, we're really excited about the step out potential here, which is a play which people haven't been chasing particularly, but has got huge potential. And I think this is set against the backdrop of Malaysia, particularly Peninsular Malaysia, who's looking to import gas at the moment. They're bringing in LNG, would you believe, to Peninsular Malaysia. They're crying out for new gas supply, and this is why they're pushing us to crack on with this, and why the opportunity exists for companies like ourselves. So it's that highly supportive macro backdrop, which is a really good help for us, and puts the wind in our sails, as it were, as if we needed any more encouragement. But lovely, small portfolio, very high quality. We're super conscious that new things we do may dilute the quality. We definitely don't want that. So, now our own kind of thresholds and criteria are always getting higher and higher and higher. So, I'm sure life will get harder as we grow this. But right now, I'm just so pleased with the speed and the quality of the assets and the team that we put together. And we've been out here for a little while, but Nick and Pierre in particular have done absolutely stunning work, pulling together a team who can execute on this sort of thing and are so motivated. There's just a very, very nice feeling around the place that everyone is really excited. And I think this sort of stuff, it sends out waves into the industry. And again, we not only get other companies calling us, we get people calling us, wanting to know about opportunities with SEASCAPE, which is unusual, I'd say, for small cap. But anyway, that's the position we find ourselves in. So what I want to do is hand over to Pierre, and then Pierre will talk you through the asset, and then Nick will talk a little bit about the gas market and what happens to the gas, where it goes, that sort of thing, and some closing comments, and then we'll answer your questions.
That's great. Thank you, James. Hello, everybody. So this is Temaris. We call this appraised and ready to develop. It's a collection of two fields, Tembakau and Mengkuang. And I think what I really like about this is it's not just the fields, but Petronas in this bidding round have given a whole larger area around the fields. So that red box is 1,200 square kilometers, and is the box that we have for license under this PSC. The license itself is right at the southern end of the Malay Basin, southwestern end of the Malay Basin, and it's all the main Malay Basin plays. Tembakau itself was discovered in 2012 by Lundin, and then it was appraised 2 years later after they had shot a 3D over the field appraised in 2014. I joined Lundin just after the Tembakau 2 appraisal well, and we actually drilled, when I was there, we drilled the Mengkuang exploration well just to the north of Tembakau. Mengkuang was the last obligation well that Lundin had to drill on an exploration license that covered that area. What's great about this is that we have a fantastic data set. So we have basically 3 wells defining the play, the 2 wells on Tembakau and the well on Mengkuang. And we have high quality 3D data set. We have extensive core in Tembakau 2, 145 meters of core. So that's fantastic, right? Really defining the reservoir. And we have the 2 DSTs in Tembakau 2, both which flows at 16 million standard cubic feet per day or so. And we have extensive MDT data and wireline data as well. So really high quality data set. Obviously it's in shallow water. It's very close to infrastructure, and we're targeting low cost development and plateau rates of about 100 million standard cubic feet per day or so on development plateau. So high quality asset in the southern end of the Malay Basin. What's great about this is the reservoirs, the quality of the reservoirs, and you can see the reservoirs light up here on the slide, on the image on the right. These are large coastal plain, shallow coastal plain reservoirs that meander and create meander belts, and they're basically flowing from west to east across here. What happens here is that the reservoirs are actually caught. And the hydrocarbons are trapped against this fault, this north-south fault, as you see on the image on the right. You see below a whole sequence of modern-day reservoirs that are analogs to the reservoirs here that we have in the Miocene. The Miocene here is between 26 and 16 million years ago. Tembakau itself is about 24 square kilometers of closure, so large closure, and there are three main reservoirs: the I-10, the I-20, and the I-80. All super high quality reservoirs. And the rock is about, in terms of permeability, it's about 2 or 3 Darcy rock, so super high quality rock. Okay.
No impurities as well.
Yeah, sorry, no impurities, no CO2, so very high quality methane throughout. This is Mengkuang, which is the discovery to the north. Smaller, of course. But again, very high quality reservoir in a slightly different area. And I like this because the high quality nature of the sands and also the extensive nature of the reservoirs across this whole area. You see again here the large box, which is the area that we have under this PSC. And you see even on this image, you'll see better on the next image, these large channel systems that go from west to east across the area. Mengkuang is a little bit more complicated and perhaps smaller in volume, so our focus very much will be on Tembakau initially, but Tembakau within its 1,200 square kilometer box, and I'll show you why we're so excited about that in a minute. This is my favorite slide of this pack. By far.
Everyone's favorite slide.
I love it. By far. And put together by our exploration manager, Matthew, who's just fantastic and loves working up this stuff. And this here on the bottom right, so that's the 1,200 square kilometer box in the black. You see on the bottom right, you see Tembakau, which is the discovered gas field, which is the 2 wells in it, Mengkuang to the north. These large channel systems moving from west to east, and you can see in the west, northwest, where these channel sands are potentially filled with gas in these prospective areas. So these are prospects that are not discovered, and but they are, as you can see, potentially very significant. Very much possible to. We think that we can actually potentially duplicate the resource we have at Tembakau, and we're saying Tembakau and Mengkuang is about 250 BCF or so, or of that order, and I think we can easily replicate that within this license area as we mature our story on the whole thing. As part of the work program, we have to reprocess the seismic. This seismic will be reprocessed, and once we reprocess that, we'll be able to train the seismic and look at it in detail with advanced geophysical techniques, AVO, amplitude versus offset, and we'll train it using the 3 wells, the 2 wells at Tembakau and the well at Mengkuang, to be able to find and identify the gas sands. So these prospect areas, which have an exploration risk, we'll be able to lower the exploration risk significantly on them before spud. So we'll actually reduce the risk on them through the reprocessing and the detailed AVO work, all trained by the 3 wells that we have on the license. So a really great opportunity. And I think then when we're, the vision would be that when we're doing development drilling on Tembakau for the development, that you actually have an opportunity to do appraisal and exploration wells throughout this whole license area. Obviously, it'd be nice to do one of these super brights up in the west there, but also you see there are a number of channels that go between Tembakau to those very high brights, and those we call them the I-80 channels. I-80 is very high quality rock in Tembakau. And I think one of those channel systems that sit between Tembakau and the super brights in the west I think we'll target also potentially for a well. But let's see how we go when we reprocess the seismic and train the seismic with the APO. So I think that sums that up.
Super
Anything else? Did I
exciting.
miss anything on that?
No, just
No.
kind of, I just will come on to a little bit about how, we think that possibly the play extends, off the block, and that surrounding us is open acreage at the moment.
Yeah.
So there's kind of further potential and kind of getting embedded here with Tamaris, I think really sort of puts us into a pole position to then sort of pick up additional acreage in and around there.
And what's great with this, Nick, is when you train your eye, when you know what you're looking for, you can really de-risk it. And obviously these channels extend out to the west, right? You can see that. So we'll have our eye will be trained we know what we're looking for from this work over the next year or so, and we'll be able to de-risk the play as it continues adjacent.
It's not a play it's not a classic play for this basin. It's I wouldn't say it's new, because obviously these were discovered a while ago, but I don't think many companies have really chased this play, and there isn't really any reason why it doesn't extend along the flank of the Malay Basin further north.
Yeah,
you could still have channels coming off that high, given it's a strat play principally.
Yeah.
Which, but I think if we can get our eye in and sort of have a leading edge, as Pierre is describing, particularly using some AI techniques, I think we're going to be really well positioned to go chasing this even further north, as well as to the east. I mean, we could go in every direction.
I was thinking, James, about why some of these features haven't been drilled, and I think it's really, and why Tembakau was drilled first, because Tembakau is really a structural play.
Yeah.
And that's why it was targeted. So there's a lot on this margin, a lot of structural plays historically been drilled, but shied away from the more stratigraphic features.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think an element as well is sort of nice segue into sort of my slide here, which is around the gas market, which is historically Peninsular Malaysia, so Western Malaysia has been effectively oversupplied gas, and so that has resulted in a lot of underinvestment. And that underinvestment now has kind of put Peninsula in a situation where they're now short gas. So they're actually importing LNG. And of course, they're also relying on coal-fired generation, which still supplies a huge amount of power here. So now there's this wonderful transition story of kind of lowering the carbon emissions here. Filling up Peninsula with these developments and indeed reducing sort of energy costs here in general from so that they can continue to export the LNG. So you can see there in that chart on the left, you can see the production, the forecast developments, and then those LNG imports, which are currently going at the moment. That's been a big discussion point this week at Energy Asia. A lot of LNG contracts signed. Malaysia wants to be a net exporter. A huge amount from Sarawak goes, especially up to sort of Northern Asia. But then bringing those cargoes over here just doesn't make a lot of sense when you have this huge amount of gas resource right near infrastructure. So we're lining up a situation where we think, there's a huge market for it. We're right near infrastructure there. As you can see on the right, we have a number of options about which way we can send the gas. You've got Sotong, which is the closest bit of infrastructure, but I think lacks compression. A little bit further away is Angsi, which does have compression, so we can get higher rates. And the idea here is very much to replicate what we've got at Dewa, which is really unmanned platform, so cheap and cheerful. We think probably the capex is going to be in that similar range. We've started doing the work, obviously, to win the bid. We've done a lot of the sort of base kind of screening work, but now for us, we're getting the team together to really get into those details. But we can see capex probably in that similar range to Dewa, which we've guided to sort of $5 to $7 a barrel. The stuff still ends up being hugely economic. We've gone through this in the past with Dewa, so this is the same type of PSC, the so-called SFA, the small field asset PSCs, which result really in a sort of a net economic take to the contractor of 50%. So we're really excited about being able to push gas into a market which has a huge amount of demand at a low cost, and hopefully do it really quickly. In terms of our upcoming catalysts, we're just really trying to zoom in on Q3 here. We've got, Block 2A. There's been some great work going on. We've been sat down with INPEX recently. We're really excited about all of the good stuff they're doing, especially on the subsurface as they're kind of getting ready to make the well commitment. That should be coming during the third quarter. And after that, they'll be looking for a rig. And we'll have a little bit better idea on timing when all that is kind of confirmed. In terms of the real near-term on Tamaris, I think the thing to focus in on, we've talked about the seismic reprocessing because that, it starts to unlock these other plays, gets us thinking about the surrounding acreage and where else we can chase this. But I guess for both Tamaris and Dewa, in the near term, we've commissioned a CPR because I think it's I think it's important that we get a third party looking at this to try and confirm some of the things that we've been talking to you all about. Now, these will be contingent resources, so there'll be 2C resources to start with, and until we sort of have firm development plans, that's when they transfer into 2P. But I think that that CPR will cover the 2C. We will also get some idea on the upside on Tamaris. We've commissioned, so the report will include prospective resources, again, trying to frame the prize here, which we believe is quite significant. And then, we can use that CPR for many purposes, including starting to think about financing this project. I know there are a lot of questions. I won't do that now. I know everyone has sort of question on that, so we'll come on to that maybe in the Q&A. So just to sort of close out the sort of main bit of the presentation, Tamaris is just this major step forward for us. I mean, it's no secret we've been trying to get a hold of this asset actually for a while, since we were Longboat, which is sort of unbelievable. The fact that we kind of have it is, it really blows my mind, and the fact we're able to beat out the competition and get this is just fantastic. So this gives us that material growth we've been talking about. Our current portfolio, if we were to stay at the equities we've got, we'd have 20,000 barrels of oil equivalent production per day within 3 years, which is just enormous, from where we are now. And we are in the driving seat, and that's what we really like about Tamaris. We can stick our flag in the ground, we can move this forward at a pace, which is great. We've talked a lot about the low cost of capture. We still, at the moment, have a limited balance sheet, and so we felt that the best way to create value has been using that to grab these resources. So we're investing in the people and in the work underneath that, rather than having to buy resources. So these are coming effectively for free for a small work commitment. And in that, we can really leverage our network. And this position that that SEASCAPE has built, in large part to Pierre and his very deep relationships, as well as James and myself, to really sort of make sure we know about these things when they're coming and be able to target them very specifically. And then we have this huge amount of upside, and that's really what we like about Tamaris. Is not only is it a simple, straightforward development, relatively cheap, actually this huge upside which could double the resource and then maybe chase it even further afield in Peninsular Malaysia, which remains, I believe, hungry for as much gas as we can put into it. So all in all, absolutely fantastic. We're over the moon, delivering what we've said we're going to deliver, and couldn't be happier. Actually, couldn't be happier. So with that, we'll just kind of stop and we'll get to sort of the Q&A.
Perfect. Well, Nick, James, Pierre, thank you very much for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions. You can do so just by using the Q&A tab situated on the top right corner of your screen. But just while the company take a few moments to read the questions that have been submitted today, I'd like to remind you that the recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboards. As you can see, we have received a number of questions, both pre-submitted and throughout today's live presentation. And James, I'll hand over to you to run through the Q&A, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. Well, I'll pick up on some themes because a lot of these questions sort of replicate each other. But one theme that's been pre-submitted early on is all about business development. I know we've spoken quite a lot about it, but saying, are we still keen to build the portfolio further? If we pull the trigger on something, how hungry are we for that? For that next step. I mean, I think we have alluded to other things nearby, Tamaris, which is at the forefront of our mind right now. But Nick, do you want to comment on?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're very much keeping our eyes open. It's part and parcel of what we do. I don't think we could stop keeping our eyes open for BT if we tried. It's kind of in our veins, right? And there's no reason not to go out and try and build this business more. We're in this unbelievably unique position. There are very few peers. We have this huge competitive advantage. So why not try and go and exercise that? You don't get times like this very often. I think that the key for us is maintaining that high asset quality and making sure that we don't just sort of take something to have it. Production deals remain fully valued. So we would love to do a production deal, but we're not just going to do one just to say we've done it. I'm never into sort of paying a dollar for a dollar. We really have to see upside or have a sort of unique situation. But we have, through a number of times here and also through our careers, sort of found interesting opportunities. So absolutely, we're still keeping our eye open for BD opportunities.
Someone asked, are you aware of who else is competing for Temaris? It was a very short time fuse from announcement to bid submission. It was extremely tight. And the team did a fantastic job of getting a very full, comprehensive, high quality bid in. I think, well, maybe I'll answer it by saying we know there are. I'll spare that. We won't name names, but there are a couple of people who did bid who we would be concerned about as competitors. And why us? I think because our pitch to Petronas in part was we want a flagship. We want one thing to wake up in the morning about and worry about. We don't want to. It's not 5 different developments that are ongoing. That we have one. And we're going to make it work. We're going to live and die by it. And, I think they like that. I think they like that determination, that focus. So, there are very good reasons, strategic reasons why I think they were encouraging us strongly. And we could feel they wanted this for us. Costs is obviously another theme which is popping up. Cost to drill a well, but also, I think generally development costs.
Yeah, just to reiterate, we think it's going to be somewhere in the $5 to $7 a BOE range to develop this. We're going to be working on this. We are going to be giving more information out. Hopefully we'll be able to give a little bit more guidance around maybe the time of the CPR, maybe even to the time of the interims once we've had it. We've had it for 2 days. So please bear with us. We are really working as fast as we possibly can. And the intention really is to bring our shareholders along on this journey as well. So I think that's the key, is we're helping, understand these different milestones that we need to go through, really being, good in our communication, which I believe we are so far, so that, you can understand what's going on here as we move the project forward.
Very good. Maybe, Pierre, is there a liquids play to be chased here?
No, the gas, it's pretty dry.
Very dry.
It's pretty dry.
Yeah.
This is really a gas play through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually it helps in terms of the geophysics. The fact that it's gas actually helps it enormously.
Yeah.
It's much easier to discriminate on a gas charged sand than an oil filled one. Very good. Could you perhaps tell us a little more on why these fields weren't previously developed?
I think so Lundin, when Lundin discovered it and then appraised it, I think there was question marks over Peninsular Malaysia gas price at that time. And also demand, but that's completely changed now. Not only the growth of the Malaysian economy now, but also Malaysia is also going to create a data center hub for Southeast Asia in Malaysia, which is going to increase the demand for energy even more. So I think the whole piece on gas demand has completely changed. And I think what's happened over the past 5 years or so, or since it was created, IPC, which is the Lundin follow-on company, has been completely focused on Canada. And we know that the projects in Canada have been very highly capex intensive, particularly Blackrock, which is just in the main capex intensity phase right now, and last year and the year before. So I think this really fell on the back burner and was no longer a priority project for IPC, or at least that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
That's understanding. Nick, what are the options to farm down Temaris, and what percent would we like to keep? The brokers mentioned 50%. Did that? I don't know who told them that.
Yeah, look, it's a really, really good question. So I tend to think of farm outs in the broadest sense possible. So, farm out really is it's laying off some of the risk, on a sort of another financial counterparty. And there are many ways to do that. And you can think of it in terms of asset deals. You can think in terms of, joint venture deals. You can think of it in terms of just, raising bank debt. So there's lots of different ways of laying off that sort of risk. And I think we will approach this with the widest possible lens. We have done lots of different types of transactions. Those of you who knew sort of Longboat, for example, we did a sort of quite limited transaction in Norway, bringing in a large partner to sort of provide a huge amount of finance. We couldn't find assets to deploy it on. But that's a sort of example of an interesting joint venture sort of type that you can do. You could sort of sell the asset down probably in pieces as you're sort of hitting different milestones and the value kind of inflects. So we're just going to kind of keep a really open mind when it comes to that. We would like to keep a material stake in this asset for sure, a very material stake. And it's not beyond question that we keep 100%. But we really have to weigh up, what is the best value creative way of doing that versus the financing options available to us. So expect us to keep a very, very material stake, and we will, for the time being, 100% moving this project forward, especially in the next 6 months, getting a very good definition around it is the most important thing for us, so that as we get into 26, we have lots of options and optionality about what we do with the asset.
Excellent. Can you give any thoughts on what you think the SEASCAPE share price should be, given the known resource and potential upside portfolio? I've yet to meet a CEO who said his shares are overvalued. So if Nick says that, I'm going to eat my hat. But
I like this thought. It's definitely undervalued. Look, we have now a very, very material resource base. It's just something that and it's been incremental for those of you who've been following us for a while. We're building on it, and sort of success begets success. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, especially with Petronas, and that first slide is that we've been delivering on our promises, and I think you all see that. I think Petronas sees that. All of our stakeholders see that, and that's why we've been able to do that. And now that we've got this material resource base, I think it's massively undervalued. Malaysia is absolutely the place to be. And we've got, a great and growing portfolio.
Just to add to that on the comment on Petronas. I mean, I was with Petronas earlier today, lunch with them, and they are hugely supportive of this project. They think we're the right company for this asset. It's the right size for us, and they really want for us to get after it. So hugely encouraging.
One here for you, Pierre. Why did the Mengkuang discovery fail to find Lundin's pre-drill estimate, and why did Lundin not test the larger DHI seen in the west of the license? There's a good reason for that one. I know that it was outside. Well, it's in our license, but it wasn't in there.
Yeah, it wasn't in their license. It wasn't in their license.
They didn't have it.
Should we go back to that slide just so that everyone kind of see?
Yeah.
Sometimes this is such a visual. This one.
Yeah. There we go.
So Mengkuang at the time, I think, was quite a disappointing one in terms of the
volume,
the volume that was discovered. But actually now it's hugely valuable because of the understanding of the reservoir and delineation of the reservoir. We have actually 3 wells penetrating these sands, so it's super helpful in terms of defining the AVO, defining the play. The prospects to the west there weren't in the original box out of things for Lundin, and Lundin weren't actually looking at the sands that are slightly shallower up to the west as well, and the stratigraphic nature to them as well, being high risk.
Excellent. So a question here is quite a good question, actually. It's a simple one, but just stepping back, what are the obligations on Tamaris and what are the timeframes? So just, very basically, we've signed up for this. What exactly have we signed up for it?
Definitely. I'm happy to do that. So if you want to so really, this is again mirroring what we've got in Dewa, which is that there's the main commitment is to deliver a field development plan, so-called the FDAP here in Malaysia, and we need to deliver that by the back end of 26. So we've got 18 months to deliver a field development plan, which you will then take and then sort of kick off the development. In order to get there, we have promised to spend 2.5 million. There's just a touch over $2 million. Some of which is kind of it's really the underlying work that we need to do to get it all ready to go. I think we refer to the bank guarantee, which kind of covers that work program. So we'll be spending money on effectively reprocessing the seismic, which Pierre has talked about, and then doing that engineering work and the subsurface work to get this ready to kind of go and develop. So again, that cost of capture versus the size of the resource is just it's astonishing.
Okay, just a couple of just two more, and then we'll call it a day. Someone asked, will we be surprised if more than one shareholder turns up to the AGM? Now, can I just ask anyone listening, viewing, if you could speak to your broker and vote, please, for the AGM, because we have a lot of retail holders, and I know retail are sort of reluctant to vote on these things because it's a bit of a pain. But it would be nice to get some people voting for. Hopefully, you'll vote for all the resolutions. I hope, but that would be great. And then last question: what is the plan to attract more funds and investors? And I think, I'll answer a little bit. I'm sure Nick and Pierre could chip in, but we did bring in, we had a little fundraising, we did bring in some new institutions in a very, very small way at the time of day one. Oh, 2A, sorry, the 2A farm down. But and we really would like to see them step up. And so we are going to have a bit of a push on marketing this story to institutional investors. And, you should expect to see that. I see volumes have been quite good in the last few days, and on the back of this news, I think we're starting to see quite sizable liquidity. But obviously, there needs to be a transition for these people to buy the stock. People have got to sell it, and we don't have many shares out there, as you know. So anyway, all we can do is push hard on that.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got the AGM is coming up next week. Again, another sort of please vote if you can figure out a way to do so through your trading accounts. And probably on the back of all this sort of great news, it'd be nice to get out and see some institutions and tell the story. As the market cap grows, as we get that momentum, you get that liquidity, and that sort of helps with institutions' ability to take bigger positions. So I think that the door is open. We're seeing a lot more institutional interest in the space in general, so it's kind of quite constructive. E&P is no longer a dirty word, and so I think that we are. We're in a great place for that, so we'll be doing that. We're going to do another IMC next week, probably reasonably short and more just kind of Q&A sort of stuff following the AGM. So please tune in for that. Otherwise, listen, thank you so much, everyone, for listening in today. The presentation will be available on our website. We are absolutely over the moon. We've been delivering on our promises, and we're going to continue to do so. So we're entering a really exciting phase for SEASCAPE Energy Asia.
Very good. Thank you very much.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback, in order the management team can better understand your views and expectations. On behalf of the management team of SEASCAPE Energy Asia PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good morning.